It's time to saddle up.
Welcome to the Cowboy Up podcast. This is where talk is all about the West, the spirit of the West, and especially the people and personalities that make up the West. This is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and Cowboy Spirit Radio Productions. My name is Steve Clausen, but the brains of the outfit is Russell True, the president of White Stallion Ranch. I'm just so honored to share a microphone with this man. He is an institution and a member of the Dude Ranch Hall of Fame. Russell, how you doing? Was that an okay introduction?
Yeah, it's a little over the top. So,
but was it accurate?
Then.
Was it accurate? I think it was.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm pretty introspective. Well, today it's exciting because we're talking rodeo, and we have TJ Jones, a rodeo announcer. He's talking to us from Texas. I was never a pro rodeo guy. My brother was and is, and I hope he's not listening. He's kind of aging out, but TJ is with us, and sixth generation native Texan, and born and raised in South Central Texas. We're just really happy to have you here with us. Thank you.
Well, thank y'all for having me on. I'm honored to be here with y'all.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. I really do. So you were born and raised in South Central Texas. Now there's a show on television these days called Landman. Have you seen it or heard of it?
I have seen it. Yeah, I got to tell you, Billy Bob Thornton. That's some of his best acting, I think.
It's pretty remarkable. I won't even lie. Now, is that in your neck of the woods, or? And we're off topic already.
Oh, that's okay. That's hey, we're talking Texas. We're still right on track.
Okay.
So. No, that's actually out west of me. I'm kind of, I don't know if y'all are familiar with. I'm trying to kind of give you I'm kind of in between Austin, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas. Right, okay. Just south of Blanco, Texas. Billy Bob Thornton, that Landman, that's kind of out west Texas, and in the oil patch and all that. My best friend is from out in that area there, but no, that's a long ways from me. But in the state of Texas, you can hit several different landscapes just traveling across the state. So.
Yeah, that's like Arizona. So
yeah,
I don't know this show with Billy Bob. Landman, is it a TV show or a movie?
It is. It's not a family show. So
it's definitely not a family show.
No. Yeah, there's no filter on that show. So,
Bad Santa is being bad, is he?
Yes.
So.
Oh yeah.
And what is it about, Landman?
Just pretty much life in the oil fields out there in West Texas, and I think it illustrates pretty well how rough it can be in the oil fields. Now I don't have any firsthand experience, working in the oil fields, but I do have some friends that were, pipeline welders and all that, and they've got some pretty colorful stories to tell about.
Well, the reason I was asking is along those lines. Landman is a term in the oil business for what my parents were, and my mother worked in the 50s and 60s, and when women mostly didn't work, unless they were taken in sewing or something. And she was a landman, misusing the word. My dad was, which is an oil lease broker. And they weren't in Texas. They didn't operate in Texas. They operated in the upper Rocky Mountains. And my dad was, I think, briefly a roughneck, but they certainly had a very clear understanding of the culture of the oil fields. And, so this show is probably accurate. We'll talk about how'd you get started announcing rodeos?
So it's kind of interesting. I think most announcers you talk to, they'll tell you they kind of fell into it in some way or else. I started out team roping, and roping calves. Yancey James out at Tejas Rodeo there in Bulverde, Texas. He's the one he taught me how to rope, and that was, gosh, I want to say 16 years ago, maybe 17 years ago, where he really kind of brought me into it all and started me out roping. And I always loved roping, but we got to face facts, that a lot of us aren't going to be the best at that. And there's a whole lot of competition. And, I did good, but not great, but it was fun. And, at the same facility, the same establishment called Tejas Rodeo, they had on Sundays, they had a thing called Play Days. And it was a great event where they let kids, get to participate in barrel racing, pole bending, and a lot of different, kind of like a lot of the youth rodeo events, things of that nature. And anyway, the lady that was calling the names out and all that, she was getting kind of tired of, having to read the names out all the time and all that. And I told her, I said, well, I'll get a microphone and I can help you out. And I kind of just tried to add a little flair to it. And the current rodeo announcer at the time, Russell, he great guy. He's actually the one I have really to thank for getting me into it, because he heard me, just kind of doing a little bit of name, calling names out and kind of adding a little color to it and everything. And he said, hey, have you ever thought about announcing rodeos? And I said, well, no, not at all. Actually, I said, what I was going to go to college for was going to be speech communications. I wanted to do, public speaking, motivational speaking, things of that nature. And I said, but heck, I'm willing to give anything a try. And it just kind of snowballed into that, I got an opportunity to announce my first rodeo. This was in 2020, actually. And July of 2020 was when I first got a go at it. And I tell you what, once I kind of found my groove, it was rocky at first, but then I kind of found my groove, and I quit listening to other announcers and listening to other styles, and just kind of found my own groove, and it just kind of took off from there. And then I went into horseback announcing, and I don't know, I can go on further and further and elaborate more if you want, but I don't want to go too far astray. But that's kind of how it started, was just a Sunday afternoon play day, helping the kids and super seniors.
Just helping somebody out, and you ended up with a path forward. That's a good story.
Yes, sir. It's amazing where the Lord opens doors.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
I would agree that's a good story. We've got a guy here, in fact, you're talking to him, that does announcing from a horseback during a rodeo. And I've had the opportunity to listen to him a couple of times. And Mr. Russell over here, he goes deep into the history and some of the rules, and he gives you some of the backstory that you don't get too many other places.
That's right. Yeah, and in a lot of pro rodeos, you don't get that. It's more about the contestant, and that's what I like about a lot of the non, the open pro type rodeos. That format, you can really connect with the crowd and explain to them how these events are still done on ranches today, and a lot of the reasoning behind it, and so they get a clear understanding, of what's going on.
Well, that's actually a lot more similar to what I do, which is not at all conventional rodeo announcing, where you're talking about individuals and where they're from and what how they're standing in the PRCA or what's gone on at that rodeo, and it's a lot of details, and it's specific knowledge in real time. And my stuff is just that history of ranching as rodeo emerged from ranching, and so my thing is, in fact, my biggest challenge, because a lot of our guests come back, is come up with something different each year so they don't go completely to sleep. And so what I do is very easy comparatively, and it's just very, very different. And actually, it's kind of interesting because my voice is normally a little better than this. It's not as good as yours ever, but I've still got little lingering laryngitis here. But
it happens.
my thing started. We used to do, and this is now about 35-ish years ago. We've been here 60, but we were hosting elder hostel groups, which, if you don't know what they are, they were older people. I think at the time minimum age was 60. It's a little lower now, and they were people interested in learning still at different venues, and started out at college dorms, and then it kind of moved out to other places like here. And they were coming, and I said, would you, we do a rodeo. We could do a rodeo for you. It's a little rodeo. It's mostly roping and barrel racing and stuff. And they said, no, not really. No, we're not really very interested. I said, okay, no problem. And then, so they thought about it. They had a second thought. And they said, well, if you could add some sort of component of education, maybe, we would give it a try. And I said, well, I'm not trying to talk you into anything, but yeah, we could, I can do that. So that was sort of the beginning. And then I ended up teaching a class for them on history, ranching, and rodeo and present day stuff. So it forced me to learn some of the stuff I wouldn't have known otherwise. I knew the present stuff. So that's kind of how I got started, is just kind of an odd back door like you started. And so do you, what's your range? Do you go everywhere, or do you stick in Texas because they've got so much going on?
So I'm blessed enough at the place that I announced, we have 40 regular season rodeos. So it's every Saturday night from the beginning of March to the very end of November. So yeah, so it's great for a guy like me who's a bachelor with, freedom and no life. It's nothing for me to give up a Saturday because I'm doing what I love. And when I swing a leg, when I step into the leather and I'm in that saddle and I'm riding along the fence line, getting to interact with the people, there's no better, there's no place I'd rather be than right there at Tejas Rodeo. So that's a really cool thing. I do 40 season rodeos there, and really we also do convention rodeos, which is more similar to kind of like what you're doing out there at your place.
Exactly.
Where companies, because we get people from all over the world, and just last night we had folks from Japan, Australia, all different parts of the globe, and a lot of them it's their very first time seeing a rodeo, just like at your ranch there. So it's such an educational opportunity, so we do 50 to 60 rodeos a year easily, just at that one spot. Now I have gotten the opportunity to get a taste of traveling. I think last year in January I went up to Wichita Falls, Texas, the military rodeo national finals or world finals they had up there. And I could go into a lot of other stories about that situation, but it made me appreciate more being able to stay local and taking the traveling aspect out of it. I really do appreciate having a spot where I can go and announce that many rodeos.
Well, tell us another story about the military.
Yeah.
World.
Oh, well, the rodeo was great, and the people were outstanding. I really liked the people I worked with there. My friend actually, we call him Chili Pepper. He's a local funny man here out of Blanco, Texas. He's the one that connected me with him to get that gig, and it was a great experience as far as the rodeo. I got to meet a lot of great people. I don't think I'll ever stay another night in the town of Wichita Falls.
You what? Say it again. I'm sorry.
I don't think I'll ever stay another night in the town of Wichita Falls, Texas. and I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. But the reason is that the very first night that I was there, so I went, I checked into my room, talked to the girl at the counter there at the hotel, and got all my stuff put down in the room, and everything was great, and then we were, or it was the evening, we went and did a sound check and everything and got set up, the next day. And during the next day, while I was setting up and we were gone for a few hours doing sound check and everything, I came back and I couldn't get in my room. And so I went down to the counter. I'm like, hey, my room key's not working. And they said, oh yeah, no, we checked you out. And I went, wait, what? I was like, I got the whole rest of the weekend here. And they said, no, we've got all your stuff on a cart. They went through and nobody told me, nobody at the hotel, nobody told me that there was a checkout time, that they were going to have to wait and move me to another room the following day. It was just a cluster, to put it mildly. And so I'm out in the parking lot with all of my stuff on a bellhop cart, with trying to basically put everything in my truck. And I've got a rodeo in a few hours at this point.
Lovely.
Yeah. And so I was like, I was, madder than the barnyard rooster, just really, really upset. And I'm like, dadgummit. And I was like, Lord, if you're trying to tell me that traveling is not in the gig for me, message received. So I haven't traveled since.
Really?
for a rodeo. Yeah. No, if I do again, I'll bring my own horse trailer where I can plug into the generator or something, but in a parking lot. But I'm not going to play that game because it's stressful enough. You know,
well, when that happens to me, TJ, it's because my credit card has been declined. But
yeah. But here's the kicker:
self-induced.
I wasn't even paying for the room. It was the rodeo organization that hired me.
I love it.
That,
I love it.
Paid, oh yeah. So yeah, that was my first traveling announcer experience, and I was like, man, Lord, if this is what it's all about, then I don't know if I'm going to do this.
Well, if you come to Tucson, we'll make sure you don't get your stuff thrown on a bellhop cart. But we got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you, TJ. Another great podcast program called the Cowboy Up Podcast. We're grateful that you are with us. Hi, my name is Stan. I'm the radio man. I'm the founder and leader of what we call the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network. I've been in this business many, many, many years, and this is one of the fun things I've gotten to do in my many around the world years on radio, and that is to produce some of the fine programs which reflect the Western way of life. I oftentimes say with a smile, we're hoping to save Western civilization by teaching and telling people more about the Western way of life, the cowboy experience, something that all of us want in some ways to do from time to time. I remember somebody said to me, Stan, this is the place to be because everybody wants to be a cowboy, or at least try it out someday. What I'm looking for right now is we have wonderful opportunities for people like Russell and like Stephen and others who've said, we have a story, we have a song, we have something to show and tell about what it means to enjoy, live fully the Western way of life. So maybe you are one of those persons. Well, this is the year to live differently. This is the year you're going to thrive in 25. So if you have an idea for a radio program, and even if you say, Stan, I don't know the slightest things about radio programs, I will say to you, we can help you. Even if you are a rank beginner, we can get you on the radio. Now, back to the program.
The red button. Stan, mark a 5 for part 2. TJ Jones, rodeo announcer.
Okay, we're back with TJ. Okay, TJ, you do about 40 rodeos a year, except when you do 41 and you go on the road, and you know that that's not a good plan. So,
yes.
I'm sure that you've seen accidents. I want to ask you about those and how you handle that. But anything ever really just crazy happen in a rodeo?
So a couple of things come to mind, and both these happened in the same year, actually. It was kind of a wild year, but this was, October of 2023. I was still, fairly new to horseback announcing and all that, and I was on a new horse. The journey of finding a horse that you can announce rodeos off of, that's a trip all on its own, because it takes a very special horse to be able to announce and write times and do all that off of. It's calm. But anyway, it was during the bronc riding, the ranch bronc riding at this rodeo. And I'm on the fence line, doing everything I can to stay out of the way. And the pickup man, he missed the first snag. He missed the first pickup. And so he drifted out. And then he went back in to pick this guy up, a buddy of mine, Tanner Hernandez, great bronc rider, put on a great bronc ride, and pickup man moved back in to pick him up. And if he'd have been about 10 feet later, it all would have been good. But he was about 10 feet early, and he funneled this bronc with the riders, the cowboys still on him, funneled him right to me. And I can't tell you how much, leg pressure I'm putting into my horse to try to keep him squeezed up against that fence line. And I guess with everything coming at this horse, that old Palomino, old Buster, he did not like that at all. And he kind of spooked right at the perfect time. and he popped his rear out, kind of wiggled away from the fence line, and right at that moment, that bronc just T-boned us. I mean, just flat freight trained us, knocked us over. So I rode my horse all the way to the ground, just tipped us totally over on our side. And I got up, I'm looking around in the dirt for my microphone and my horse. I'm looking around, where's he at, and finally a couple of the bullfighters, they got a hold of my horse and grabbed him, and I found my microphone, knocked the dirt out of it, and climbed. And this is right in the beginning of the rodeo. I mean, so it's like, all right, we're off to a great start already, let's do this, And so I got back on him, and everything was okay. Now I turned 40 this year, and as I go on in life, I realized that the things I used to could get away with, I can't really as much anymore. And I got back on, and everything was good. But boy, at the end of that rodeo and the next morning, I had a hitch in my get along. It was a little.
And the horse came out okay, huh? Despite the.
He was. Oh yeah, big old stout. He's a big old stout horse. And he got off without a limp. I mean, I was more worried about him than me.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one putting him in that situation. It's like, well, this idiot cowboy on his back. But,
the pickup guy didn't help, right?
Yeah, it was. And I can't fully blame them, because they're focused on trying to get that cowboy off of there, and so their eyes are on that. But there was a lot of things could have happened differently in that situation. But hey, it's rodeo, and one thing about it is, anything can happen. And on that note, I've got a whole nother story for you if you want. That's totally,
you said you had two.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know y'all are familiar with mutton busting. Most folks, that's probably one of their favorite events in rodeo, is when the kids ride the sheep. And at Tejas Rodeo, where I'm at most of the time, they've got these little sheep chutes, and they're just like bucking chutes, but they're miniature. And they're for that you can run a couple sheep in there, and they've got gates that open just like a buck and shoot gate. And how like where the slide is on buck and shoots, they've got that little cap, the kind of looking thing that goes over the slide.
Absolutely.
I don't really know how to. Well, barn swallows a lot of times will build nests up under there, and there was some of that. There's some straw up under this tap, on this little slide, and I always lean up against that because with the mutton busting, the kids, each of them they'll list like some of the activities they like to do, and we'll always say, oh, this kid likes playing with Legos when he's not riding sheep, or whatever, and I'll lean up against that, and I always tap the rodeo hand that's working the gate. I'll tap his back, and let him know when get the timing right so he can open the chute right at the right time. And so I'm leaned up against that cap, that deal. It's about, got my elbow on it. And right about the time I was about to call for this kid, a dadgum snake sticks his head, a big old rat snake sticks his head out from under that cap and tries to take a bite at me. And this during the mutton busting, and so I'm trying to play it off and act like nothing's happening, so the crowd doesn't realize that there's a snake, trying to bite people right around where the kids are at. That's bad for business, and so he just and so I kind of move away, and my mistake was calling a bullfighter. A bullfighter came over there to deal with it, and this bullfighter, he gets a hold of the snake. He gets bit 2 times in the process trying to do it. I mean, you could see he was bleeding on the hand and everything, and I'm trying to tell him, quietly. I mute the microphone. I'm trying to tell him, hey, get it out of here as quietly as possible. Well, he takes the snake, and he's got the head in his left hand and the tail of this snake in his right hand, and he stretches it out, and he holds it up like Simba from the Lion King, And I said, well, cat's out of the bag, so much for being nonchalant.
Yeah.
And so I had to comment on it. And, and it's one of those things I'll just kind of tell the crowd, that when it comes to rodeo, the most impossible thing you think would never happen, well, plan on it happening, because it'll happen. Things you can't even think of,
Well, yeah, that's one.
That's one for sure.
And TJ, what I can't figure out is how you expected a bull rider to do something quietly and nonchalantly.
Bullfighter.
Or bullfighter?
Yeah, bullfighter.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
not
That
gonna
was
happen.
my mistake.
That's their job.
well,
Oh yeah.
well, they
So
like
put
the
on a
show, some of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And this one did. He's good guy, good as gold, but he didn't view the situation quite like I did. So he was
No.
like, it's an opportunity to have a little show and tell.
So,
So yeah.
so does the Tejas Rodeo, does it do all the events then, it sounds like, and do you have kids open up every weekend?
Yes, sir. So we've got two sections of mutton busting. We'll do a pre-show mutton busting and then one during the rodeo.
Oh,
And
no
really,
kidding.
the only event we don't have, I would say for the most part, is steer wrestling. We've got tie down roping, we've got team roping. We have mainly a ranch bronc riding once a month, but that's open to if a saddle bronc rider wants to do it, or for a bareback rider, we get bareback riders sometimes. Bull riding, we usually get two sections of it. We'll do, on most normal nights, we'll start the rodeo with a little bull riding, and then we'll end the rodeo with some bull riding. We do the girls, the breakaway roping, which is really, really, we've been doing that for years and years. It's just recently become more popular in the PRCA world.
Yeah,
where they
I mean,
start
it's
giving those
what,
cowgirls.
3, 4, 5 years in the PRCA, really?
Yeah, 3 or 5 years in the PRCA and like 18 to 20 years or so more everywhere else.
Everywhere else. Yeah, everywhere else.
Yeah.
I used to,
Yeah.
at our rodeo, say, you can find this almost anywhere but the PRCA, but that's sort of
Uh-huh.
changed now. So, no steer wrestling because there aren't enough steer wrestlers, or it's a choice?
That's really mainly it. They did years ago, back when it first started. My timeline may be a little bit off, but roughly about 18 years ago, I know they had tried it a few times in the rodeo, and it was either hard to get steers, because y'all know that steer dogging it sours some steers out. You
Right.
want to get a steer stopping, that's a surefire way to do it. So it's hard to find stock contractors in the area that were willing to bring dogging steers. And then on top of that, just finding enough cowboys to do it. I'd go to, when I used to rope, I'd go to some other rodeos, around the Texas area. And if they did have steer wrestling, it might be one or two, if 2 or 3 show up.
Yeah, that my brother, as I mentioned, PRCA, and that was his main event. He also team roped, and he was telling me lately it's and a few other events there's a real shrinkage, and he was trying to buy a bulldogging horse, I don't know, a few years ago, not that many, and he said there's just no horses because there's no bulldoggers, no bulldoggers, no horses. So it's a shrinking deal.
It is. That my dad actually was on the rodeo team at Sul Ross State University, and that's what he did. He was a steer wrestler and a bull rider, and
that's an unusual combination.
Yeah. He was working both ends of the arena.
Wow.
I guess you could say.
Big guy,
yes, sir.
Riding bulls. Wow.
Yeah, he actually wasn't. He was a short guy, short and stout. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he had the height for bull riding and I guess the shoulders for steer dogging. but he always tried to get me into steer wrestling, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I said, man, if I can't get it done from the end of a rope, I just don't have any business, because I'm too flat-footed. I can't run that great, and I don't know if I plant my feet in the ground, I might flip over forwards and backwards and every which way. So
yeah. Well, my brother is a very small bulldogger. He's like 5'10", 180. I'm 5'10", 150. So it wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't really made to bulldog. I'd team rope, but.
Okay.
So what's you said you're sort of between Austin and my favorite American city, San Antonio.
Yes, sir.
What's the nearest? Where are the people drawing from to the Tejas Rodeo?
So primarily San Antonio. That's the big. There's a couple of tourists. One primarily Visit SA. There's a big tourist group there, and they'll get people that come to Texas or San Antonio specifically, and there's things on their bucket list they want to see, some of the history of San Antonio, which there's a lot there. Yeah. But then also a lot of them, they want to know, where do I go to get the Texas experience? And, the easy answer to that is Tejas Rodeo Company, because you can really get the full cowboy, the full Texas experience right there in one spot. There's a steakhouse. They got a live band after every rodeo. There's a gift shop, covered rodeo arena, covered bleachers. I mean, everything. It's really the whole gig. And so they really every Saturday night, in those months that we're open, we get people. I'll go around after the rodeo. I'll ride the fence line and just to talk to people. And we've had people from Saudi Arabia, people from, like I said, Australia, Japan, the UK. And this is like every Saturday night we get people, and a crowd, anywhere from 1,500 to, 2,000, just kind of somewhere in that wheelhouse of just all different walks of life. And this is one of the things I really love about rodeo is it's different than a sporting event where you've got one team versus the other and you got to pick a side. Rodeo, it's just everybody kind of piled together and just rooting on the Western heritage, the way things started.
Absolutely.
And that's
what we
really love.
That's, it's more like, it's an individual sport. And so that difference is a big one. How else is a rodeo guy, certainly embedded in it deeply? I have my own thoughts, but what do you think separates rodeo? I'll digress for a second to the point is in I think it was the 40s, rodeo was the second biggest sport in America to baseball in terms of total attendance. And clearly not the case now with the huge sports enterprises. What do you think separates rodeo from other sports?
Marketing. I really do. I think it's way under marketed. I think you can flip on a cable TV channel and you can go 4 or 5 channels and catch a baseball game every other few channels. I don't think it gets the TV exposure. I mean, to the point where they've had to come up with a whole other, network just on its own just to get enough rodeo coverage, rodeo entertainment. So I just think it's exposure, really. That's just kind of my thought.
If rodeo wanted to fix that, meaning I guess the PRCA, how would they do that?
It would take a big, cooperation, in my opinion, between major sports channels like ESPN, different channels like that. And they're going to take one look at it. If they don't get the viewership, then they're not going to keep doing it, because it's all about the dollars, the dollar signs. If they're not getting the viewing, they're not going to get the money. And so I just, that's really, I think what it is. And also too, there's a lot of negative stigma. I think I think uneducated, a lot of naivety as far as the rodeo. I think a lot of people don't really understand what it's all about, the reason behind it. And there's a lot of, animal type, advocate type people out there, trying to, they try to paint rodeo as this picture of, abuse and different things like that. And I've been around it for so long now. I had to tell you, if I could trade places with one of those rodeo, the bucking bulls or a calf or something along those lines, I'd do it in the New York Minute, because you talk about a great job. The rodeo, the animal athletes, the livestock, they're treated better than most people's house pets. I mean, they really are. They're fed well. They're well taken care of. I mean, they get doctored. I mean, they see the doctor more than I do. So I think if people really saw the behind the scenes and how well these animals are cared for, I think there would be less of a negative impression of rodeo.
Well, I think to a large extent the animals are the star of the show.
Exactly. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love to take the opportunity to brag on the animal athletes and just watching the horses work and doing what they're doing, trained, and the athleticism of some of these broncs, and what they do, and they love it. I mean, they really do. There's horses, a lot of these broncs that you turn them out there, and a lot of them, they'll get to bucking just out in the pasture, just having a good old time. Y'all know horses enough as well. When a horse, when you kick them out of their stall and you let them go out to pasture, what's the first thing they usually do when they limber up? They get out there, they stretch out, and they get to kicking and bucking. They're having a good time. So, it's a lot. I think education. I think a lot of people, if they're properly educated on rodeo and different things, and how that steak made it to their plate,
Yeah.
That's pertinent to
one of the statements that you made is that I really appreciate is whoever said a dog is a man's best friend never owned a horse, and then you started talking about old Buster.
Yes, sir. Oh yeah. Yes. That's that is my true best friend, my announcer horse, old Buster. I bought him a little over a year ago, and I tell you what, that's just the bond, and really it's with any horse, a cowboy or a cowgirl and their horse. And I say that almost every rodeo. There's not a stronger bond in the world to me than the bond between a cowboy or cowgirl and their horse, because you're independent on what you do, but like you look at cowboys that work in the feed lots, in the pens and all that. They're spending day in, day out seeing the land between that horse's ears, and they're a team. I mean, a true team, and a teammate in which you're on their back the whole day, and they, for 99% of the time, they tolerate you, and all they're asking for is feed and just being treated right, and you treat them right, and when you earn that respect, 'cause that's the thing with a horse, they want your trust. They want to trust you, and you want to trust them, and once that trust is established, that's a bond that can't be broken, So that's,
Well, that's a perfect way to end. Tejas Rodeo, how far out of San Antonio does someone travel to get there?
Oh, I tell you what, every day it gets a lot closer to San Antonio.
That's like us here.
Yeah, oh yeah, y'all probably experience the same thing. It's just growing. So we're almost to the point of we're almost in the suburbs of San Antonio now,
Wow.
but we're just about, I would say, 10-15 minute drive right out of the north side of San Antonio, and you're there.
Wow, that is close.
So
Yes, sir.
if someone wants to see it, remind us your season. You start in March?
Yes, sir. So the first Saturday in March, and it's every Saturday from then on until the last Saturday in November. So
Okay.
9 months out of the year. Yes, sir.
Wow.
We always say 9 months of rodeo and 3 months of rehab, because we're pretty tuckered out by the end of the season.
Right. And 1,500 to 2,000 people are usually there, and there's a band afterwards, and there's covered arena, and you say, also a steakhouse, and so they can go there and get the
smokehouse.
entire experience. And is there a website they can go to?
Yes, sir. Yeah, they can check out tejasrodeo.com.
Okay.
There's a wedding event venue at the back of the property, so it's about 70 plus acres that the whole place sits on. It's a beautiful place, and I love to brag on them, and I also too, though, I want to brag on y'all's place, because I went on y'all's website, and I tell you what, I'm chomping at the bit. First chance I get to come see y'all's ranch and hang out with y'all, I'm sure gonna do it, because what a beautiful place y'all have, and I really look forward to getting to visit with y'all in person and bring the horse and hang out with y'all.
We'll make sure. We've had to replace me a couple of weeks on the rodeo announcing, so we'll have to get you out here since my voice. So Tejas, by the way, folks, is spelled Tejas, Tejas, rodeo.com.
Yes.
And it's not how you might think phonetically. So March through November, Tejas Rodeo, TJ Jones, he'll be out there horseback, and we'll count on seeing you in Tucson.
One of these days we'll have him. I'm going to warn you, TJ. You get here and you're on a Wednesday night, we're going to put you to work.
Yep.
And that's all right. I'm not afraid of work. Not at all.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, TJ.
Oh, thank you guys. It's truly been an honor and a blessing, and I appreciate the opportunity getting to come on here and speak with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen cowboys. Another great program. We're grateful for you, your time, and for sharing your stories, your wisdom, and a bit of cowboy knowledge and fun with those of us all around the world. Hey, perhaps you're like TJ. He said, boy, I really enjoyed being on a program like this. He'd like to come back, and we'd like to have him back. And we're always looking for people like you who've got stories to tell, maybe songs to sing, and you've got a touch of cowboy wisdom right inside of you, and perhaps you'd like to be a guest. Well, we would welcome you raising your hand and say, give me a try. So why don't you think about that? Maybe that'd be the way you'd say, I'll try it once, and if I like it, maybe I could have my own program in 25. So here we go. StanHustad@gmail.com. That's StanHustad@gmail.com. And tell me your story, maybe sing your song, maybe share the wisdom, insight, and truth, and maybe your touch of humor and good wit that would be helpful and wonderful for those of us at the Cowboy Up podcast. And remember, this is the place to be. We come to you from the White Stallion Ranch right here in Tucson, Arizona. I gave a presentation the other day, and someone came to me and said, Stan, you talked about kind of having a space where you can kind of just get away from it all and find a place, a little bit of a retreat. And they said, well, what would you recommend? And I'd say, well, you know what? My wife oftentimes says to me when she thinks I'm a little bit uptight, Stan, I think you need to go to the ranch. Well, you know what ranch she's talking about? It's the one you can find at whitestallion.com, whitestallion.com. Whether you want to do radio or retreat, or just simply find yourself on a horse and enjoying that adventure and great Western hospitality, you are welcome to the White Stallion.
Russell, one of the things that we talk about when we open up the Cowboy Up podcast is it's especially about the people and personalities of the West. And I think this is a great example. This is someone that's really a personality of the West, and some of the things that happened to him, and and the love that he has for his horse and for animals in general. And he's involved in rodeo. And you listen to some of the media and they say, oh, it's abusive. No, it's not abusive. It's actually, they take very, very good care of these animals. And it's so nice to talk to somebody like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's a good example of rodeo. If somebody had asked me the question, I asked him what makes rodeo different from a sport. And this is from a reformed NFL and NBA fan. I've pretty well lost interest in all those sports, and I could list the reasons. But, if you're somebody who goes to see a rodeo, whether you're a fan or you just want to go see what it's all about, you are seeing, whether you're at the Tejas Rodeo or the National Finals Rodeo, which is World Championships, or any rodeo in between, you are seeing people, even if they're at the very top level of their sport, rodeo, they are doing it because they love their sport. And, that's how football was in the 50s, and my great friend Dan Schneider was an All-American baseball player, 11 years in the major leagues, and I think his highest salary, and he was a left-handed reliever of high quality, and I think his highest season pay was $30,000. And so he wasn't doing it because he was getting rich, and today I think they did an analysis in the 90s, and in that era, 30-something years ago, he would have been making over $1 million. Wow. Same guy, same sport, same position.
Remarkable.
So money, rodeos, some people can make a living, but the they could stay safer and make more money at home.
They pay a price for it.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and thank you for being with us. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. Please write to us. We'd love to hear from you. Again, tell your story. Let's see if there's a place for you on the program. We'd love to hear from you. And please recommend us to others. That's how we get to go and grow and reach more people with the great stories. So please give us a good review, subscribe, and recommend us to others. And perhaps you'd like to maybe sponsor one of these programs. We would look forward to doing that. Lots of people listen, lots of dedicated, thoughtful people who love what they do and love what they are. We reach those people, and perhaps your business, your service would benefit from having your name as part of the Cowboy Up Podcast. Again, reach out to us at the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. Thank you. All the best and blessings to you. May you thrive in 25, and we'll probably go out with our friend, Mr. Cowboy Jones, as he tells us. This is our theme song. Yeah, stay by. Stand by your man. Stand by your horse. Stand by your lady. Stand for your brand. Don't forget the cowboy way.
Storm rolled in from the western sky. 2,000 head of steers took flight. Good night paid those boys to ride, and by damn they would, though some might die. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years and growing strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. She's 10 years old on a stout bay horse. 300 years they guide her course, from the Spanish quest to the blue and gray, to what we call the cowboy way. Don't say goodbye, don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. To the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years and going strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Rawhide and steel, hooves and horns, legacy to the yak unborn. A code that comes from a hard-lived life. Your destiny when you're born to ride. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years and growing strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Don't say goodbye, don't say goodbye to the cowboy way.